Well, good afternoon. Welcome to episode 12 of Optimum Live. It's the day after the day before, or whatever, something to that effect. That's how much punch drunk we were from yesterday's budget. That gives us the date. It's Thursday, October the 31st, and yesterday we had the first budget of the new government with a black hole, blah, 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 all of those things that had to be covered off. And it was a long, long watch, wasn't it? We watched it from start to finish here at Optimum as well. My name is Chris Dawes from Visual PR. We're going to deep dive. The good news is, don't need to rely on me. We've got someone who's going to know. And it is, of course, Mike Blaken. Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah. All right. Just about.
Well, I mean, it was a marathon, wasn't it, yesterday?
Yeah, I think that's the longest budget I've sat through.
Was it? I mean, what I will like to say, by the way, is I thought Rachel Reeves did a fabulous job in the delivery. You know, I'm a public speaking coach as well, and I thought she did incredibly well with it, and did enough to just about keep us listening to it throughout. But it got a bit heavy towards the end, didn't it?
Yeah, there was a long story at the start of where we are, how we got there, and what position we're in before we got into the crux of the detail, which everyone I think was sat sort of holding on to what it was going to be, and we got it.
we did, and I think you and I were just chatting beforehand. By the way, everybody watching, please get any comments or questions in. We can put them up on screen. We can answer any questions live as we go through this, and we're going to be cherry picking a few parts. There might be a part 2 in a couple of weeks where we'll go into some of the other points if we feel that there's a need to, but it was, I don't know, there was part of me was saying to you is that it maybe wasn't quite as bad as I was expecting it to be, but there was still some water balloons dropped in there, wasn't there?
Yeah, they split who they wanted to target in terms of businesses. So some of the smaller businesses with a couple of employees will probably tick along and not really notice too much of a difference. However, some of those bigger businesses that got quite a few employees, I think they're going to be looking at their numbers to see how badly they're affected from that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to hear, and you always got to be, and you must have to be careful with this. We will in this show have to be careful with this to some extent. Is that it's very, the immediate doom and gloom is what you can get caught up with, and reading people's comments, and you have to kind of go, well, I can't change it, right? What do we make do? And it's like how we all settle into it over the coming days, I think. But one of the biggest ones that I'm picking up, and I know we're going to go into a few areas in a bit more detail in a second, but is, right, we want businesses to grow and to employ, but we're going to penalise you for growing and employing.
make it more expensive for
Yeah.
getting the staff in. Yeah.
I mean, that was one big conflict that I had as I drove away from here yesterday, thinking that kind of contradicts itself to some extent.
Yeah, exactly that. It's not what you would expect from a textbook. Perhaps it's 2 or 3 knock-on effects down
Yeah.
somewhere along the line that they're trying to say that the extra money here will be invested there, which then will grow there. And it's that rather than a direct, we'll make it cheaper, you get staff in and you grow.
Yeah.
It's the knock-on effect that they're working on.
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky. Some people picked up on a couple of bits of things like going, okay, so the government got this black hole, but they're picking up a 1.8 billion bill for the Horizon scandal. It's like, well, why aren't Fujitsu paying that? And it's easy to sort of like get angst about a few things, but
yeah,
Graham Leafield summed it up for me yesterday when we chatted afterwards. He said, you sometimes have to blindly trust what they're doing because they're seeing the bigger picture that we might not. But they did make it difficult with a few bits to do that, didn't they?
Yeah, and it comes down to, at the end of the day as well, what choice do you have?
Exactly.
We're here, we're in business here, so we have to toe the line. So you're right, he's right. You just got to get on with it. And I think that's the thing with small businesses who we're going to be working with. They're probably the most robust and agile sort of set of people in the industry of working. So that naturally what will happen is everyone's going to spend a week or so going, oh, blooming heck. But then they're all going to pull their sleeves up and go, well, we just got to get on with it.
Yeah.
Or we stop. No one really wants to stop. So then you go, well, we just got to get on with it. And we just got to make a bit more money to be able to pay for that tax.
Yeah.
And essentially the headline that was on the BBC for most of yesterday was businesses have to absorb these taxes or this black hole. And essentially it is, we have to absorb it, but it won't just be out of our pocket. Everything's got to move on. So prices will have to go up, costs will have to be cut. And you've got to realign your business, because for a lot of businesses, they might be facing 10 to 20 grand extra tax in the year. So where's that coming from?
It's got to come from somewhere. Yeah.
You can't, it's not just sat under the bed. It's got to come out. It's got to come from the businesses. So it's either got to come from income or it's got to come from cost that's got to be cut. And I think that'll be the bit that's a little bit worrying for some people, is how much the cost will be cut from staffing. So that's something that is going to be individual to every business. There's going to be no one size fits all, but everyone's going to have to look at their processes a bit. Yeah,
suddenly self-employed contracting looks a little bit more
just dropping under the radar.
Yeah,
nice little day rate.
Exactly. It is a tricky one. I mean, I'd have liked again, Graham said it to me yesterday, is that it'd have been quite nice. It says, guys, we need to stomach this and we got to resolve this issue that wasn't just previous government, it was pandemic caused as well. Let's not be totally unfair.
Yeah, there was no talk about reminding everyone that that's where it came from. That was a bit of the school grounds sort of argument out there that I didn't quite like.
It had to come from somewhere, didn't it?
Most of it has come from COVID, of everything that was done then, which you can agree or not agree with how it was done, but it was done and it came from there.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah.
But to turn to say that we've got to sort that out, I get it, because that's where, the commerce is what's doing it. I don't know whether the right phrase is responsibility, but certainly that's where it's going to come from to a reasonable extent. But to give a sweetener that says, but in 2 years, I don't know, Graham's suggestion was directors' dividends or something like that, that we'll do a lower rate in 2 years' time on that. I don't know, just something that was like this little sweetener that says,
there's a light at the end of the tunnel.
Correct, exactly. Stick with us in 2 years' time. This will be your sweetener. But no, it's not. It's just like, but we've got to cut our cloth accordingly. I've heard people talking about they're going to have to scale down their workforce or something like that. But you kind of hope, well, surely it's not going to be that, because the work's still there.
Yeah, and I think that the aim is that it'll be to improve efficiencies and systems. Yeah. But I think some things will move offshore, off the UK, and outsource to other countries where they can with the remote systems and stuff that you've got. So it's going to be what can. But then there's a lot of industries. I was chatting to one yesterday with care home. You cannot outsource, work from home, do anything like that. You just got people in the building, in the workplace, that have got to be there, and they have to have so many people. But it will be things like, oh, I won't keep you on until 6 in the evening when it's a little bit quieter. It gets a bit quieter at 4, so you finish at 4. And it'd be little cuts like that.
Yeah.
But who's suffering that? It's the staff at the end of the day who are on the minimum wage and around that area that are getting their hours cut. So although their pay's going up, their hours might go back. And other businesses might grow and hit on the back of the growth trajectory, and it'll all be fine. So,
and being careful, we're not disappearing down rabbit holes, and we're definitely not going to get political during this one because it's not our place to do that, is it? But is there a proof will be in the eating? Is that we're just chatting on some parts that go, well, surely with that coming because they need to make money or save money, that's actually going to cause this to happen, which is going to do more harm. And certainly we sit here going, surely it could do, but they've had to do something and balance these things out. And I don't know, when will we know whether it was the right decisions? How
you won't. We'll either be in it in a couple of years' time and it'll all be fine, or we'll be in a few years' time looking at a new political party. You just don't know. Like,
the merry-go-round.
Yeah. But again, you're on the train. You can't get off. We just got to get on with it nearly.
Yeah. I meant to actually have a look because I know when we did, again, I'm really not getting political, but it's easy for us to refer to this, the Liz Truss mini budget that happened that just crashed the markets and everything. I'm right in saying we haven't really had anything like that that's happened, have we?
No, I've not heard any murmurs in the markets at all. I haven't actually looked to see how they were.
I haven't, but we would hear, wouldn't we, if they had done?
It was. I think by the time she sat down, there was some movements in the market straight away. But again, it was because that hers was quite radically different.
Yeah.
We'll never know whether it would have been right or not.
True. Yeah.
I was chatting to a client yesterday who was listening to an interview with her quite recently, and actually some of the stuff she was saying was quite genuine in what the idea was. Would it have worked? We never know. We don't know now.
No, we won't. Right, let's get into some specifics, and we've had to cherry pick, as I said. Right, The first one I think is the biggest one, and we have been pretty much touching on this now. National insurance.
Yep.
That was several big changes there. Speak to me. What's the key ones?
So, if you're an employee, no change. Okay. If you're self-employed, no change. Okay. If you're the employer, then it is change, and that's where the changes are. So, at the moment, the rules are if you pay someone as an employee, you pay an employee a salary more than £9,100, you pay national insurance on the bits above that at 13.8%.
Yep.
Okay. But for small businesses, that the first £5,000 of that employment allowance meant that you didn't pay any national insurance. Okay. But what they've changed it to is anything above £5,000. You start paying it from. So the rate's dropped from when you start, but also the rate's gone from 13.8 to 15. Okay, so quick calculations here. Well, I say quick. All right, so a minimum wage from April, minimum wage on 40 hours a week, salary of £25,400.
Yeah.
The national insurance bill now on that employee for the employer will be £3,060. When it was 2,250. So it's an £810 increase on that one employee on minimum wage
over the year.
For a year.
Yeah.
So to combat that, what they brought in was that actually for the first £10,500 is no national insurance.
Oh, was it 10? For some reason I had 9 in my head.
Yeah, so 10,500. So what that equates to, what I like to do, convert it into numbers that make sense to everyone else.
Yep.
Your first three,
because that's not per employee.
No,
that's for your company.
Exactly that. So for the first 3 staff you have on minimum wage, and let's put in your own salary as well, because you've suddenly now got national insurance. We can get to that bit in a bit. But essentially, you and 3 staff, you won't pay national insurance. But anything above that, you're paying about £800 to £1,000 an employee more a year. So if you've got 20, it's 20 grand.
Yeah.
Best part of a year. If you've got 200, start ramping up quite quickly. So the number, and that's quite a big change. So they went up with the rate, down with the threshold. So that means a lot of part-time staff that would be working that might be on a few hours, like 10, 20 hours a week. They're getting caught by paying national. The employers have to pay national insurance. So some firms, in the care industry as well, some of that you would have some part-time staff, sort of like, or you get some industries that are heavy on using working mums who work around school hours, so part-time hours. Wouldn't actually be paying any national insurance on those staff. Now you've got to be aware of it, because if they got them and a balance of other ones on full-time, they're going to get quite quickly to this 10.5 grand. So there's going to start to be a cost there to come in.
Yeah.
So that's a big change in the market, and that's going to cost lots of businesses a lot of money.
And surely they must see that, and doesn't that not ring alarm bells for them?
I suppose they look at it and go, if you've got 20 or 200 staff that you're a size, you can afford it. You've got a pot, you've got revenue profits to be able to deal with that. But at the same,
you just said over 3 employees.
Yeah.
So that's the lower end of the SME market.
Yeah.
That is going to start hitting these extra costs.
Absolutely. There's so many businesses, like I couldn't put a number on how many now are going to be affected by all this change. But it's things like with a director is typically on a small salary and dividends. That small salary is geared around making sure you get a stamp for state pension and not paying too much national insurance. It's a sweet spot with the tax. But now, so what you've got is over £5,000 you've got to pay national insurance, especially if you're a single director company, because you don't get the employment allowance if you're just a one director firm.
Right.
You got to have it for at least 2 directors paid above the rates, or staff. Okay, so one, like a contractor or so, they haven't been able to get this rate for ages, but they've had a higher level before you start paying national insurance.
Yeah.
So if you're over 5 grand, you're starting to pay national insurance, but you got to be over 6 and a bit grand to get a state pension stamp. So all of a sudden, all these salaries that have been going on in the background, and it's just, this is minor in the big things, but it's more just a bit of an awareness. But we run a load of director salaries in the background, and it just gets processed every month. It's silent. It just happens. State pension stamps get achieved. Tax returns get done. It's lovely. Whereas now we're going to have to go to everyone going, hey, you've got to pay a little bit of national insurance now, either each month or at the end of the year or quarterly or something like that, which means when you open up more payments of tax for employers that they haven't had to do before, they're then paying VAT, national insurance monthly, corporation tax, the self-assessment. What tends to happen is they get the references wrong, and they haven't moved the reference over, so they start paying the VAT to the PAYE account and stuff. And I know you can't defend that's someone's organisation, but when there's suddenly loads of payments that happen, the clients start missing it in a busy day of a working life, working day.
And I can relate to that, as my company is scaling up at the moment, and suddenly when I was paying staff, it was like, get them paid at the right time, but then I've got this PAYE that needs to be done. Then I've got to keep an eye on that NI pot to work out when I get to what was 5 grand now is more before and then go, okay, so how much am I now paying? And it is because I'm not hiring HR and payroll team
to do it.
Exactly. And so it is very easy to make that mistake and pick the wrong one in the bank payment thing.
So it's just all these little things that knock on, and no one will really have sympathy in the big picture for like that, because that's just admin and just being on top. But it's just another thing of another cost, another thing that as the business owner's got to be thinking of making sure it's all getting in the right pot. But the cost of this national insurance is a lot, and like I said, I think the market was they got 40 million black hole and 20 million is coming from businesses. It's coming from national insurance. So you've got for businesses as well. You bearing in mind we're in the middle of the start of the higher rate of corporation tax as well that was brought in from the last government. So some businesses could be faced paying 22, 23, 24, up to 25% corporation tax. We've got the extra national insurance as well. So all these things are just at this current time compared to 2 years ago, quite a lift in what that tax is going to be for the businesses.
Now, You haven't got corporation tax, so I'm just quickly going to ask a very quick question on this
Yeah.
one, because you made the comment at the end yesterday that they did not mention the 19%.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
No, I didn't catch it. I didn't see anything, but it is business as usual on that. They've not changed it.
Okay.
So yeah, good.
There was a cynicism there.
Yeah, I didn't trust it until I see it in black and white. I didn't trust that they would actually keep the 19 because I thought they would just take it away.
Yeah.
And put everyone on the same playing field. But they are trying to. I suppose they are trying to help the smaller business by not paying as much tax.
Yeah, so we'll wait and see. So that's fine. That's all I'm going to say about that one, because it's not on your list, so we're not going into it. So the national insurance, it is going to cost more money. It could increase outsourcing rather than, I know you even say it offshore, we got a lot of people that now kind of go, actually, I'm an expert at this, I'm going to now contract to multiple companies, and that's what they choose to do. Well, suddenly that might become a more palatable option. But I guess we need to make sure we're not throwing baby out with the water with this kind of like, holy moly, that's big. Is one thing that stood out to me yesterday when we, myself and other invited companies to be here with you guys as that budget was happening, was let's sit down, let's revisit those numbers, because in your mind, this is where you're really helpful, the royal you, is that to sort of like go, let's look at that as a whole, that goes, there's the income and there's the outgoing. Do we need to revisit some costs? As in, do your charges need to go up a little bit? That's not an unhealthy thing, because I think some of them have been stuck out of a lack of confidence to grow them. And it's like, well, maybe it's about time they did kind of push up a little bit. But equally, is there some bits that we don't need that level of cost? And make it work to go, right, it's actually going to cost that much more for that many staff. Is it right that we got that many? Yes, because the work's there, fine. We now need to make sure that we're covering this. And in your mind, you're able to go, let's get it all balanced. And so we need to sit down with people like yourself.
That's it. And if the economy goes the way they want it to go and it grows, then what should happen in theory is, yes, the costs are going up, but at the same time, more revenues coming into the business because there's more demand and there's more bits. So what people, like, if you think about it, might happen is, money coming in goes up, money going out goes up. So you stand in the same position as we are now. Rather than going, actually, I'm going backwards. So the idea, if we were trying to do the glass half full, is actually looking at it going, well, hopefully we'll walk into a period where growth and everything is improving. So the businesses can benefit from that. So their turnover, say, goes up 20% because demand goes up. They're making more money off the back of that. Therefore, they can pay for more taxes, and it makes the wheel spin round. They can use that to invest in the NHS and all the infrastructure stuff they want to do. So that's the glass half full. That's what, hopefully, rather than, because sometimes if they're going into a rubbish pit and then with the taxes going up, that's going to be more difficult. But hopefully the idea is that actually by April next year, when all these rates go up, it's when the point when the growth is going up as well.
Absolutely.
So hopefully the two combat each other off, and when we're aiming for that good time that we're all having somewhere in the sights, it's just got pushed a little bit, but hopefully it's still there.
And I think that's the key one, isn't it? Is that we've rightly tackled this initially in the tone that it was largely received. I mean, it was quite incredible, wasn't it, here yesterday, as that was announced, everyone went, whoa, in the room. But to kind of digest and find the way out, to resolve it, and you're talking about, look, the growth's going to be there, we're going to get the higher, revenue streams, all of those sorts of bits and pieces. We've got to accept our responsibility as commerce that's how the money comes in.
And that's what small business does. Small businesses adapt and change.
And we're more able to, aren't we? It's not like turning the QE2 like the bigger companies.
That's it. So at the end of the day, there is always that period of, oh, this isn't great. I had it the same last night and this morning, coming in going, God, it just makes it all a little bit more difficult. I'm thinking of my own business. I'm thinking of all the clients I look after. I'm thinking this has just made it all a little bit difficult now. But then you just start talking about it. I've talked to a few clients this morning already. And then you get through the initial rant and you go, right, so what are we going to do about it? You lick your wounds a little bit and you go, well, actually, let's put a plan together, because unless you're going to give up, we got to get on with it. And that's the thing. And so it is that the businesses will adapt. New income streams might appear because you go, well, actually, I'm going to go down that route now because I've been meaning to, and now I'm
Good bit of
forced to.
diversification.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And it might mean that everyone works a little bit harder again to cover it. That's probably what's going to happen for a while.
Yeah.
But then hopefully things transpire and come out the other end, and it's all okay.
That's fairly black and white then. National insurance, it has gone up, but the employee allowance has gone up a little bit as well. Have conversations with you and work out plans and see how we go. Yes, it feels a bit doom and gloom, but it's like, let's find a way through this one. Next one. I asked you what on earth this one was, and this is a big pin pull I'm about to do. You've put on my list, and I quote, pickup trucks. This is going to upset and cause an issue for a few people, but I missed this completely yesterday.
And it has already. It was released in February that they were doing this rule, and then within 48 hours they changed their mind on it.
Right.
And now they brought it back in again.
Okay.
So this is for double cab pickup trucks. So 2 rows of seats and then a pickup truck on the back.
Yeah.
Or pickup base on the back, even if it's covered, right? So if it can't carry more than a ton, so it's less than a ton payload, it's always been classed as a car. That's been the rule book.
Okay.
But if on the back it's legally allowed to carry a ton, then up to now it's been a van, commercial vehicle. Yeah. So you get 100% annual investment allowance. So if you buy a 30 grand truck, you get 30 grand off your profits. Okay.
Got you.
Benefit in kind. You only have to do a benefit in kind when you've got private use on it. But trucks and vans, if you say you were going to one workplace, but not in a car, home to the workplace is commuting, which you don't get. That's private use. But in a van, it's not. So that's one quite clear, definite. You can have, quite often you can get a truck or a van that you won't need to pay benefit in kind tax on because the private use is very, very incidental to the main use of the vehicle.
Okay.
Mainly because of that home to workspace isn't classed as private use for commuting.
Got you.
Okay. VAT, you can get the VAT back, and all been lovely.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So what they're doing now is from April 25, anything new, any new ones brought into the business at that point, now a car. Okay.
So make sure I got that last bit. So any new ones.
So it doesn't have to be new. It's new to business to the business.
So if they've already got one, it's not changing.
No, the rules aren't changing straight away. But if that business acquired a new or a second-hand pickup truck in June 25, that'll be classed as a car for benefit in kind tax, corporation tax, VAT rules, everything like that. So a personal gripe of mine coming from a farming background, pickup trucks are double cabs are used a lot on farms.
Yep.
Because you got kids or stuff like you got the bit in the front with all the stuff, sheep, cows, whatever, sit on the back, like with the hay, everything like that. They're now like the farm's not going to be able to have that under the same tax rules.
Yeah.
That's going to change a lot. And so last time they did a big U-turn, but that's because they were bringing it in to be generally on all vehicles. But what they decided now is they've gone, right, what's been is gone, but anything new coming into the business is going to apply the new rules. So they've got a period of 4 years. After 4 years, so by April 29, if they've still got one that was bought now, it'll come into car rules at that point.
Right, okay.
So essentially, there'll be no double cab pickup trucks in businesses.
And that one's not likely to be withdrawn again after 48 hours? No. Why are they doing that?
Well,
and presumably it's been abused somewhere.
So there's a case law with Coca-Cola where you might say Coca-Cola took the mick a little bit, perhaps.
There's a surprise.
And
corporate taking the mickey.
And pushed HMRC to their limits. And that's part of one of the cases that was changing the ruling of what was being classed as a car or a van. So whether they've still got to be in a bonnet about that, because I actually off the top of my head can't remember which side won. I think HMRC won it anyway. Right. Which is why they're bringing all these changes in, because case law is showing this.
That's right.
Which is why it's sort of vans and stuff, that certain vans are getting pulled into line a little bit, where if they're not really a van, but they got a shape of a van, but they're not a van, and it a bit of a complicated thing in the background. But this is they're quite heavy moving, like. But this you didn't hear that in the budget? No, it was just one of the small print. Mandy spotted it yesterday, sent me a message and said, "Oh, have you seen the double cabs back in this?" And then I was like, "Oh, okay." So I checked our budget update this morning and checked a couple other sources, and yeah, there it is.
Silly naive question from me then. Everything that was announced yesterday, and we're touching on a few of the points here, are they in?
It's got to be agreed and approved in Parliament to become. So a lot of these changes are for April 25.
Yeah.
So they have a period where they have to get them essentially signed off by Parliament.
Yeah.
So, but I think near enough every time it does.
It does, right.
It's just a process. This is what it is.
Yeah.
You've got to sign it off.
I guess I was only asking that because of the fact you said the pickup one got withdrawn after 40 hours.
Yeah, so that didn't come in their budget. That came in
okay.
as an ad hoc thing.
Got you. Okay.
So yeah, that was the difference.
Fair enough. I was just clinging on to straws for a second there.
It's all right. You don't have a pickup truck.
I don't. Although I did consider it. I genuinely did consider it. But no, okay, fair enough. So pickup trucks, be mindful from April next year. They're going to get some good sales in March then, aren't they, of double cab pickups?
Yeah.
Hey, that will offset my national insurance increase if I go and sell a few of those. Sorted. Done.
Visual PR and
Exactly.
pickup truck sales.
Well, you said diversify.
Got to be done.
Is that covered everything on the pickup side?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Next point, you got capital gains tax. I think this is where, if it's relevant to you, this and the next one, I think, started dropping a few grenades, didn't it?
Yes, and I think everyone was aware of this coming in. Capital gains tax. I think if you were someone who'd gone into the budget and you weren't shocked at the fact that capital gains tax went up, I think you hadn't been aware of what they've been talking about for the last 2-3 months, and in that to be the manifesto, their whole idea is they wanted to increase capital gains tax. I don't think they've ever liked it being as low as it is.
Okay.
So we knew it was going to increase, but we didn't know where. So we had a lot of businesses, if you speak to insolvency brokers, where they were closing down, cashing in the capital gains tax rate as it was. They've been quite busy up until yesterday. I saw a post from someone about yesterday afternoon going, "Oh, we're all done for a bit." Yeah, I was busy.
Because was that the one that they said as of tomorrow this changes it?
That was one of two that they've done that on.
I was like, "This is that going."
That was stamp duty as well. They've done
right. Okay.
But yeah, so essentially, it's now so the capital gains tax. It was if you had, say, 20 grand of income and then you sold a capital asset. So we'll just quickly go capital asset. So if you had a, let's say, what can we say? You had shares in the business. It wasn't your business. It was just some shares. Okay. Yeah. So let's go with, you had some shares in Apple. You bought them for £10,000 and you sold them for £30,000.
Yeah.
Okay. So you made a £20,000 gain. That gain is an income because it's an item that you bought and sold for a profit rather than income where you've earned it. Okay, so you get £3,000 free. Used to be 12 grand, £12,300 a while ago, but we'll let that one go. That wasn't this lot. That
don't do the cumulative impact here, right?
So you got 20 grand. You take 3 grand off for free, and then you had £17,000 that was taxable. Okay?
Yeah.
So if it fell into your basic rate band, you would have got taxed 10%, and if it was higher, it would have been 20%.
Yep.
Okay. From yesterday, as soon as she announces it, effectively, it went to 18 and 24%. So that's an 8 and a 4% increase, depending on where it fell.
Yep.
Okay, for you. So for most people, it would be going to 24%. With time, you add their other income and bits into it, and if they made a decent gain, you might have a little bit in the basic rate band and then a bigger bit in the higher rate bands. But so effectively, it's all gone up in tax.
Yes.
Okay. Residential property. So you've got buy to let, rental, holiday or something like that. Second home. You sell it. Okay. You've always had an 8% and a 4% uplift anyway. So it's been 18 if it's lower. It's been 24 if it's higher.
Yep.
Okay. they kept that the same and just brought everything else up to that level.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to be perfectly honest, I was surprised they didn't increase the 18 and 24 for residential. They didn't like them. They don't want people to have them. So I was expecting, but then maybe the other argument you could say to that is they didn't increase it because they're making it a bit more expensive and they want everyone to get rid of them. So it incentivizes getting rid of it. If you put the tax up too much, most people
won't sell them.
What's the point of selling them? Give it all to the taxman. So maybe that's why they kept it lower, is to actually funnel some of those to be sold.
Yeah.
Interesting. My dad lives down in Cornwall, and he said the town just up from him, or the hamlet up from him, there's 20 houses for sale. And I would say it's all holiday homes and stuff. It's a holiday home area.
That's promising. That is actually promising.
But then no one can sell because nobody wants them, and nobody who's local in those areas that it's in the tourist areas can afford them.
No.
So actually, they won't sell.
God.
Anyway, that's the rabbit one.
Yeah.
Okay. Other changes. Okay. So what was entrepreneurs relief that most people know of, now called business asset property disposal, business asset disposal. That's it. BADR.
You need a run up for that one.
Entrepreneurs relief. Right? Yeah. We know what that one is. So essentially, you sell your own business. People are just accepted and aware of this 10% tax. You add 10% tax if you sell your business, your shares, or like that. Okay. From April next year, that 10% goes to 14%.
Okay.
From April 26, it's 18%. For the first £1 million. And then after, so essentially all you're saving now is 6%. So if you sell it, because if you sell it for 2 million, you've got a business, you grow it, you sell it for £2 million, £1 million at 18%, right? And then after that, it's at 24%.
Yep.
Okay, but before it would have been 10% and then 24. So on that £1 million, what it will do for most businesses that sell is kind of double their exit tax retiring.
Right.
If they retire in a few years' time.
Yeah.
So 10 to 18%. So not a lot. There's a chunk of business that will sell for more than £1 million, husband, wife, £2 million. Yeah, there will be some, but I would say your general business that comes towards the end of its life, will either closes down and cashes out or sells on, won't sell for more than 2 million. So those people, if we just look at those, their tax has gone from 10 to 18, so it's nearly doubled.
Got you.
So that might mean, again, if they need a certain amount in the back pocket to after taxes to retire on, they might have to go another couple of years to build up the pot a little bit higher, so that when the cut takes out, they end up with what they need.
So they still have what they want.
Yeah. So if they needed 900 grand, let's say afterwards, so they sell it for £1 million on the old money, and you had 100 grand tax, they might have to go for 1.1, 1.2
Fine.
to be able to get the 900 grand. So it'll either push the price up or make people hang on a bit longer. So it's one that I've got quite a few people that will affect, because there's ones where they are retirement's probably in 5-6 year plan at the moment. So they again, we just got to take into account it's a direct cost. So
it doesn't destroy it. It just means there's a little bit more planning in there, I guess.
That's it. So again, it's just being aware of it.
Fine. Anything more on the capital gains side of things?
No, I don't think so. It's just it's come in now. So there was people there was a lot of people within the property that was looking to try and get dusted for the budget. For those people, whether they did it before or now or after the budget, there's actually no change in their taxes on property. It's just everyone else with an asset that is affected by it.
Okay, fair enough.
So I think, unfortunately, there was quite a few people that may have sold at a bit of a discount to get it done quickly.
Right.
They've probably suffered a bit by gambling ahead.
Yeah.
A gamble that hasn't paid off, because they could have sold it later on or next year when the markets pick up again in the spring, summer.
Tricky one.
But it's not with anything, it's a crystal ball.
100%.
Number of times the clients speak to me and go, "What do you think is going to happen?" I go, "I can tell you what I think is going to happen, but I don't know what's going to happen." Speak to financial advisors, and they're damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Yeah, exactly. there's always the disclaimer that says don't implicitly trust what we're saying. You just believe this could be the case.
These are the facts. This is what might or might not happen.
Yeah.
So,
The fourth and final one that we're going to touch on this time is this was received very badly as well. I must be honest. Inheritance tax, and in particular the one that stood out for me yesterday, which doesn't affect me, but it affects a lot, is agriculture.
Yeah, and it seemed to just go with, so when different things were being said in Parliament, when it was one that the Conservatives didn't agree with, nothing seemed to be said about this one. It was just like, oh yeah, that's fine. And
interesting.
And whether it was just I wasn't listening at that point, perhaps, and so I didn't hear it, and maybe it was, or whether they didn't realise it, or whether, I don't know, whether it was just like, oh well, it is what it is.
So synopsis, what is this? What's the change?
So for people who have a farm and operate a farm and own the farm, up to now, if somebody died, it would be passed down to whoever.
Absolutely.
Inheritance tax free under agricultural property relief. Whereas now what they're saying is a farm up to £1 million will pass down tax free. After that, instead, whatever the value is above that will be charged at 20% instead of the full rate of 40% for inheritance tax. And I saw a very patronising comment, I can't remember where it was, that said, oh, so it'll be fine for most small farmers. Okay. Now, coming again, open farming background, so this one's a little bit punchy for me with what they brought in. But if you own your own farm, got a farmhouse, and you've got some land.
Yeah.
So let's say farmland's going at 10 grand an acre at the moment. You don't need that big a farm with some buildings and a farmhouse to be above £1 million.
Yeah.
But also not have a big enough farm that you can actually operate from.
Yeah, exactly.
To try and get, so like I got family who've got a farm, and I don't know, they've got a couple hundred acres, £2 or £3 million sort of price. Okay. So they're going to get walloped for, so if it go for £3 million, they're going to have a 400 grand inheritance tax bill if that passes down. Okay. And online, I was reading the Farmers Weekly bits, there's lots of people saying you can do different things with trusts and stuff like that. Yep, fair enough. But before, it was very simple. That's not so simple, and you need professionals around you, and therefore there's expense. So there is a way of sort of bypassing by the sound of it. I don't know it at the moment, but before it was very simple. Somebody passed away in the family, it passed down the generation and weighed it down. But also there was, again, chatting to somebody else yesterday, is that some people who own farms have a tenant in there. And if a tenant farm has been in there long enough, the farm itself, the people who own it, still got agricultural property relief. So they could still pass that farm down. So a good tax saving plan.
Yeah.
But it meant that the tenant farmer could come and farm relatively cheaply, because the benefit was for the owner not getting caught for inheritance tax on all this land and asset value. But they didn't need to find a couple of £1 million to start their own farm. Okay. They just had to find £1 million for farm machines and stuff like that. So, you know, so like small, right? But so they could come in. Okay. Well, what's the point of keeping all this land if they're not going to get the inheritance tax relief? Tenant farms aren't going to be able to. There's just going to be less area around to do it.
Yeah.
But go back to sort of the scenario where you've got a 400 grand tax liability on a farm and you've got to pay for it. So my first bit is going, so how does, if someone passes away, how do you pay that? So you've got to sell part of the land, right? But how do you sell part of the land if you've got a landlocked farm? You can't just go, oh, hang on, I'm just going to scribe that little bit off and just push that bit off and get someone to buy 2.5 acres over there and cover a bit of the bill, a little bit there. Because it, like, what's that use is that to someone else? You just got to go, right, actually, let's slice this in half and go, right, do you want that half? Right, I'll just leave what's there. So the initial turmoil out of that and comments online, again, it could be just the initial phase of everyone going, oh, bloody hell. And actually there's some good planning that could be done in the background. But first off is that actually generational farmers is going to run out, because they're not going to be able to keep passing it down, because the farmers generally are not going to make 400 grand in a lifetime of spare cash to pay back that inheritance tax bill, to build the farm back up, the asset value back up. So each year it's going to get cut. If it stays like this, it will get cut off and get smaller and smaller until the point where Like the grandkids are going to go, I can't farm this. There's enough here for me to farm.
Apparently, it's blooming hard already, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. And so, so then it becomes bought by some of the big landowners of little areas like Dyson Farm. He's the biggest landowner nearly in the UK. He'll just keep going around, just picking up little bits, but maybe he won't, because maybe he was doing all the land purchasing to protect his finances. So you think how much he's just been caught by.
Could it help things like, I think you know that I do a lot of work, these broadcasts as well, with National Self-Build and Renovation Centre. And I was learning from them that in this country, we're only like 7% new build or renovation, whereas it's much more prevalent in Europe. But you were just talking about they've got this much and they need to cover it. So they're going to sort of like cut off, annex a little bit over here, and they could sell it off to this sort of like self-build environment, and increase that, which helps the housing issue. I'm actually just trying to find glimmers here.
And yes, in theory you could, but a lot of farms aren't built on the side of a main road or that you could just go, that's fine, you've got access. You're then going to be selling part of a house off that's in the middle of the farm that you're going to have people coming and going, and actually not many people nowadays would want to live on a working farm, even if they're not working the farm themselves. I'd love to. My youngest would definitely, he'd bite my hand off if he could go sit on a farm all day and just watch it. He'd love it. That'd be Christmas for him every day of the year.
Absolutely. But it's not just agriculture, is it? Business property.
That's it. So again, if you die and you got your trading business, okay, and it's worth more than, say it's worth £2 million and you have to pass away, then that before was passed tax-free, okay, because it was a trading business property relief. However, now above £1 million, you're going to start paying inheritance tax. So again, it's just another thing that these businesses have got to be considering, and it's the ones that I think it is the worst that can happen is, so people get older into the generation, they get towards their, say, the end of life sort of ages, that people should have planned ahead perhaps, but those ones where there's the freak accidents or sudden unwell cancer and stuff that come along and take someone's life quite quickly, who are in these situations, they're going to be dealing with someone who's left this world far too quick, but also the HMRC are going to be sat with their hands out waiting for the tax bill to come as well, just to top it all off as a situation. So those ones, because you don't know when that's going to happen, you haven't got the 7 years to plan to try and give away assets and get your lifetime gifts. So I think they're going to be, those ones are going to have an even more torrid time. And I know when someone's passed that quickly, really cares about the offset of it all. But if the business that they were building up has then been siphoned off with a chunk of tax and stuff,
it feels a bit harsh. It's being taxed twice in effect, isn't it?
So I think again for those companies, it's going to be again, chatting to financial advisors, it's talking about getting the protection in for the business and stuff like that. So I think for them, I think they're going to be very busy off the back of this budget in financial planners, because they're going to be going, right, how do we protect all these different potential tax exposures and stuff? And there's lots of insurance covers that cover potential tax bills and stuff like that on inheritance tax and stuff. So I think, and capital gains tax. So I think people might need to be looking into those if they're feeling a bit vulnerable from where their position is to speak to their financial advisor, because actually I think that there's something that can be done there. Again, what was simple before now needs a conversation with somebody else, and maybe some cost being spent out a little bit now to cover it. But before it was like, it's kind of one of those simple little things. You didn't have to worry too much about it, because as long as your will was set up properly, it moved down the chain. And then to top it off with inheritance taxes, pensions have always been tax-free. Well, I say always, pretty much all pensions you come across would be tax-free for inheritance tax. Then now they proposed that they'll pensions be brought into your estate for inheritance tax. So someone's been building up their pot as they've been told to do so by every professional around, and said, build up your pension pot, put that money secure, it's good, it's inheritance tax proof, so you can pass it down to your children. So rather than having cash in an ISA in your own bank account. You could put it in there. You can save tax on the way up. It can grow tax-free, and it can pass down. And it was wonderful. Now, if someone's got £1 million pension pot, there's 400 grand of tax bill there, and it's being set up that the pension provider will liaise with the executors, and they'll pay the tax direct from the pension pot before it's released.
Right.
So essentially, HMRC may have felt that some money might disappear if it comes out and not get paid over. They're going, well, we'll take it straight at source.
At source, yeah. God.
So I think that one for me is a bit dirty, because people have been told to plan for their pensions, save money in their pensions, and now you're going, why? Because it's,
and to make sure I get this right, that is I pass and I've still got a pension, you now inherit my pension, you're paying it. I'm not paying tax on my own pension whilst I'm living off of it.
Yeah.
It's only if that gets passed to someone else.
Yeah, that's it. So on inheritance tax, you'll still pay your income tax if you draw it. So if you've got a 400 grand pension pot and you draw that, you get your first bit for free, 25% tax free, and then what you draw down becomes part of your income tax when you're alive. But whatever's left in that personal pension pot when you die generally was passed, depending on what age you are, was passed down tax free, either went into their pension pots, transferred to their pension pots or stuff. I was chatting to financial advisors about how that works, but that's essentially what was happening. But whatever's left over in this pot comes over and just sits as if it was cash in your bank account in a savings account at home.
Got you.
It all becomes part of it. So again, when we do an inheritance tax plan, typically you can go, ignore that. That's fine. That's business property relief. That's inheritance. That's pension fund. So that's tax free. You just got this, and this. Whereas now it's just all coming in. So again, calculations that I did last week for somebody is a whole lot different now to what it is. I can't remember. I was just trying to have a look when that comes in. I think that's 2 years. April 27 that comes in for pensions. So if you're going to get on and die before April 27, okay?
Right, I put that in my diary.
So again, what's going to be happening? But maybe again, why would they be doing that? One, raise pension pots, okay. Two, it incentivizes people to pull the money out, because if it's not going to get inheritance tax relief, then we might as well pull the money out and spend it, pay some income tax, but spend it, enjoy it, and try and gift it and do that. So try and pay 20% tax rather than paying 40% inheritance tax.
Yeah.
So again, there's going to be more conversations to be had. What should we do? Predicting the future of when you're going to pass away. I can't see a quick date off the top of my head, but I'm sure, April 27. There we go.
Oh, yeah, I see it from here as well. Well, I mean, two things then to sort of wrap this one up, and we could talk about everything in even more detail than we have done, but we daren't. Are these changes, and we've been touching on some that shall we just leave it as seem different? Are they in for a period of time, or is that now how it's going to look forever, or is it until another government comes in and changes it?
The latter, yeah. So that's their plan at the moment. They've set out their 5-year plan.
Yeah.
That's their plan for the next 5 years.
Which are very detailed in where they expected to be each year and all of that, which it started off with quite some promise to go, okay, they really looked at this. And then there's some bits that you go, yeah, but isn't that going to rob from Peter to pay Paul? And isn't that going to get rid of the confidence here?
Yep. So, yeah, and that's it. So it's until then, they might change. They can change it at any point.
And the OBR have got a big oversight on this, haven't they?
Yeah, they were brought in to make sure they did the review, but they haven't done. I remember at the start they said they haven't done one bit because there wasn't enough information available, I think. But again, it's you can read.
That was the bum throwing again.
Yeah, you can always read too much into it, but it's either in until the Parliament changes or the economy doesn't move in the direction they want, and they have to revitalise something else.
Yeah, as long as they're looking, that's the main thing. Final question then is that we've obviously addressed the things that people gulped at and what have you, and the important thing is stay positive, get involved with people like yourself to sort of like visit everything. Nothing's insurmountable. Things might change internally or figure-wise or diversification, whatever it might be. But there's some considerations in terms of your own personal things when we look at things like inheritance tax and all that sort of stuff. Was there anything that jumped out for you and you went, oh, that's good? That's a bit of pressure, but I was just interested to know if there's anything that you went, oh, that, or maybe not good, made sense.
From my shoes, no. No, I suppose they had to do something. I think personally, they could have shared the burden of the taxes. So I think yes, we all were all expecting tax to go up. So yes, that was a lot of it as expected. Perhaps I would be feeling a bit better if it was shared a bit more about the working people at Buff and not us as working people as owners, and making it shared around. But obviously they wanted to make sure they stood and kept one promise of theirs. So it's I just hope it works, to be perfectly honest. You've got to, like you said, like what you were chatting to somebody else about, is that you've got to hope that what they see works, because as an individual, I can't change anything. You could lobby and it still won't change anything.
No, exactly.
So we got to get behind it. We got to find the glass half full to get on with it. It is a bit daunting looking at all that, like look around the clients and look how much extra taxes have got to be found. Well, if you had them last year, you would, if you could have done something to save that money before the tax went up, you would have done as well to make more money. So therefore, sat here going, well, I've got to do something to get that. I think so. National minimum wage going up, I think that's good for some areas and stuff like that. But I think the knock-on effect of that is the pressure that it puts on all the other wages. When you look at minimum wage, someone just comes out from school not doing an apprenticeship or anything like that, it's 25 grand. Or like at 21 years old or so, and they want to make it one scale, so the adults are all paid the same rather than the two rates. So you can go one side's really good, other side's going, well, actually the pressure of that on wages pushes it all up, and then we get a bit more inflation again because wages started pushing up again. So I think as times will go on, we've just rolled up the sleeves and get on with it. At this moment in time, it's a bit daunting as a business owner myself, but we'll make do, won't we?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the British way. Mike, thank you so much for that one. It's always going to be a tricky one, wasn't it? Because we don't want this to feel doom and gloom. Is that yes, we've got to address the elephants in the room, but it's like we're working together to get this through. And I don't just even mean you with your services here at Optimum. I mean in general, is that we're all businesses. You know, I'm members of a number of networking organisations, and we very much all work together. And whether that's emotionally, whether it's physically, financially, whatever, and we buy from each other, we sell to each other, all of those sorts of things. It's like, hey, we can get out of this. We can make this good. And when I say get out of it, we make it sound like this is still not as bad as like a recession or something like, or even the pandemic, for crying out loud. It is not as bad as what we've gone through in those situations. So we tried to be as neutral, but without ignoring the elephants and what have you. Thank you for taking us through those things. And I have to say, and I know that Tom, my producer, was really impressed. He said, "Did they get this out this morning?" So, 7:30.
7:30, wasn't it? Yeah.
The budget from yesterday, and by 7:30 we've got this, 16-page report on that budget that we can see all those things in more details. And I'll tell you what I will do is that if you people want that sort of information, is that you need to send your details to marketing@optps.co.uk and get yourself on the list, and you'd be in that mailing list from all of this advice.
And it's on our website as well. All our newsletters, budget updates. If you go to our website, it's on there as well.
Which I'll put up online as wrong one. There we go. www.optps.co.uk. Oh no, we put it on the ticker. I didn't want to put it. That's better, right? So you can get this information, and genuinely they get it out so quickly. That brings to conclusion episode 12. Episode 13 is in 2 weeks' time today. I don't think we've decided yet, have we, whether it might be a part 2 of the budget when some dust settled and whatever else. So we may have a part 2 of that. If not, then we're doing VAT pitfalls.
Yeah.
Quick synopsis of what that means.
Just things that you might not be aware of before you get VAT registered or whilst you're VAT registered. So things that you think have got VAT on that doesn't or does, and what treatment you need to do, what systems you need to use, and just it's a lot of
first charge
for a bit of construction industry. So a lot of things, some things that have been in. We've got a lot of new clients at the moment that are sort of some are newly registered for VAT. Some have been registered for a while but have not had any advice before. So we've got a lot of kind of like the frequently asked questions kind of scenario of let's go through some of those.
And if we don't do that in 2 weeks' time, rest assured we will be doing it. I can't remember whether it was January or February that we were looking at, somewhere around there, wasn't it, that we were going to do it, but we're yet to make a decision in 2 weeks' time. The reason why there's a much smaller gap is that obviously this one was deliberately a lot later because we needed yesterday to happen first. So I hope we managed to stop this sooner than Rachel Reeves did on the budget report yesterday. What did I get to? About an hour and a half, hour and 20?
78 minutes it was.
Was it? So we're shorter than that. We did it. we managed to do it. Thank you very much for joining us. Any questions that come up, any thoughts, anything like that, please drop a line to these guys. Michael himself, his email's up there, mblaken@optps.co.uk. Drop them a line. Any questions? And if you want to revisit those figures with these guys and have a look and have that sanity check, I recommend it highly because they see things that we don't see. They see things easier than we see them, etc., etc. I think I should be sitting down with you guys as well, just to make sure. And
just to double check.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to go and sit in a darkened room now and eat cake. So we'll see you next time. Cheers.